Welcome back. So, change of pace. I've had enough wingtip fiberglass, whatever work, to last me for quite a while. I will start on the left wingtip. I will record it as I do it. I probably won't post a whole bunch of videos like I did with the other one. It's going to be the same process. I don't feel like everybody wants or needs to sit through a whole detailed string of those videos again, so I'll record it and probably release it as just one video. It'll be a compilation of several days worth of work whenever I do get around to doing it. But just to change things up a little bit, I have ordered my remote magnetometer. I alluded to it in one of the other videos from Aircraft Spruce. I originally wasn't going to go with one. There's one built into the ADHARS unit that's going to mount on a shelf behind the baggage area, but talking with the president of our local EAA chapter, he strongly recommended the remote magnetometer for the RV-8. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. It's going to live in the wingtip. Surprisingly, it's not that expensive of a piece of equipment. The cable for it was almost half as much as the magnetometer itself. But those are both coming in. I ordered the cable from Steinair. It'll be here Monday. The magnetometer will be here either today or Monday. And if I haven't said it, today is Saturday. What day is it? I don't even know. Saturday, April 5th, 2025. So I did get a start. I have made the bracket I'm going to mount it to out of some scrap. And there's the angled part. This is going to live on the end of the rib on the right wingtip, under the wingtip. So you'll see here in a little while when I get into fitting this all up. Now, this has to have some adjustment in it. So I'm mindful of that right now because the magnetometer has to be flight level with the airplane, and it has to be within 1 degree, I think it is, of level in all the axes of the ADHARS unit that's going to be mounted later on. So I need to make sure that I leave some adjustability in this so that I get it right, because obviously without the wings attached to the plane, I don't really know what flight level is right now. I do know that the spar should be fairly parallel with level flight, so that will be easy enough to figure out the front and back tilt, but the up and down for the dihedral of the wing, that'll be a little harder to figure out. So what I'm going to do is this bracket, I'm going to slot this guy. I have brass screws and nuts that I'm going to use on that, and that will allow me to tilt this up or down as needed to get that level. The back of the magnetometer is going to mount with some aluminum nutserts that I've got on the way, which I bought a nutsert kit. And then the rest of this will get riveted to the spar. And that'll happen permanently pretty soon. The rest of this will have the adjustability for later. If I do need to adjust the forward and aft, I figure it'll be easy enough to just add aluminum washers as shims. And the reason I keep saying brass hardware, aluminum washers, is because the magnetometer is extremely sensitive to ferrous materials. So you want to use non-ferrous materials. That includes not using stainless steel, because stainless steel is not always non-ferrous. It depends on the makeup of the stainless. Anybody out there that has a stainless refrigerator knows exactly what I'm talking about. You can still stick a magnet to it, so you don't want to use stainless hardware. Brass is probably the best one you can use. Aluminum would be fine. You can use nylon if you can find it. So yeah, there's some changes that need to be made to the right wing. You'll see those here in a little bit. I'm going to rerun some of the wiring so that it's not the power wires for the lights aren't coming out right in front of where the magnetometer is going to be. It'll stop one base sooner now and cut around. I'm trying to keep all the interference away from this thing as I can to give it the best shot it has of working correctly. So that's what we're going to do. Over the next couple of days, it'll probably be a few days before I release this video, I'm just going to do some fit up, redo the wiring today, and then when the magnetometer actually shows up, we'll work on getting it mounted semi-permanently. And that's it. And then it'll be on to probably some more wingtip stuff. So stick around, and as always, VoiceOver Tim will tell you what really ends up happening. All right, welcome to the voiceover part. As I record this, it is Monday, early evening, April 7th, 2025. So This was part of the day on Saturday. Sunday, I actually went and flew and got some currency back, which it was a horrible day to go do that, but good for training with all the gusty winds. So I didn't really get anything done, and then finished up early this morning on that wing. So right now you can see I'm removing the blind rivets and the clip holding that section of conduit in. I already cut the conduit inside, and the whole point is just to move that one bay over, so it'll still come out, and you'll see here in a second the way it did, just one bay sooner. I'm also taking that 8L clamp out because it's held in with a ferrous metal bolt. I'm just trying to remove as much possible interference as I can. Now I know the hinge pins that hold the wingtip on are made of steel and ferrous, but since they're stationary, it should be easy enough to calibrate that out, and I've been told it shouldn't be a problem. Anyhow, rerouting the wires, pulling them back through, and what they're going to do now is, and I'll readjust the camera, you'll see it, they'll come out one bay sooner, and then they'll go through the lightning hole in the spar and down into the nose section of the leading edge. Once I got those routed the way I wanted them, got some nylon metal tab zip ties and my little zip tie gun and bundled those all up. Also got that 8L clamp back on that inner rib. So everything is now held off, not rubbing up against anything, and secure. The last bit I'm going to put in that just came in today is I have some silicone edge guard material that I'm going to put around the lightning hole in the spar where the wires pass through. They're not touching it, but that's not to say that they couldn't touch it in flight. And I don't want them to get worn through by the edge of that spar, so that'll just protect it from chafing so that that does not happen. Anyhow, those are now out of the way, and well, as far away as I can get them from where this is going to live. There you can kind of see a rough idea. I'm plotting out where it's going to go. Now, there's tooling holes that you can line up on the ribs, which I'm going to do here in a second with the laser, and that'll tell you where straight front to back is from the leading edge to the trailing edge of the wing. That's what I'm going to line this up with. I don't know if there is any angle of incidence built into these wings. If there is, it's probably very little. And if I have to adjust that part out, again, I can do that with some aluminum washer shims or nylon shims or something like that. So this is just to give me a straight line to work with, so I know what straight for the shelf should be. And what I want is the magnetometer, not the shelf, to end up pretty much as centered as it can be in that bay, so that it is as equal distance away from the top as it is the bottom. And I'm drilling two number 30 holes. I'm going to secure this with AN 470 4-4 rivets. And then I have that angle bracket for support that is going to get attached to the rib as well. And then it's not going to get attached to the shelf until I adjust the angle of it up or down as needed to cancel out any dihedral that's in the wings later on once it's mounted to the fuselage. So this will get a red tag hung on it with a little note that I need to attach those. Originally, I was going to slot the bracket. You heard me mention it in the intro. And I was going to use brass screws and nuts so that it was adjustable. But I didn't really have the amount of adjustability as I wanted with that. So here you can see me laying out a row of rivets. I'm drilling 3 holes that are going to be roughly in the middle of that flat part of the support bracket. So that gives me a good ½ inch on either side of wiggle room to adjust this up or down. So right now I'm just drilling the holes in the shelf, and I'm going to dimple them for some number 40 countersunk rivets, some 426s. And then I'm going to leave it like that. I'm not going to drill the corresponding holes in the support bracket until, again, later on when this is all attached to an airplane, and I can put it at flight level and all that good stuff. But these will be done and ready to go, and all I have to do is just pop those holes in. I can also probably take out a little bit of movement in pretty much any of the other directions by how I mount it to that angle bracket at that time, so there should be some forgiveness that can be taken out when I finalize this. If it sounds confusing, I apologize. It won't be later on when you finally see it. Also right now, I am attaching little tiny aluminum angle pieces that I made to connect the back flange to the two side flanges. I wasn't originally going to do this, but I didn't like all of the flex that it had without any support there. And it won't really flex once the angle support is attached later on, but for right now it will, and I just don't want it cracking. So a couple little angle tabs and rivet those into the corner, stiffened it right up. So since I'm not going to use the brass screws and nuts for the sliding adjustment part, I went ahead and drilled holes to put the 4 aluminum 832 nutserts in, and that's what you see me doing right now. Well, now I'm riveting in those little angle pieces, but in a second I'll put those nutserts in. You can see them laying on the bench there. And I have used one of these tools before, but it's probably been well over 20 years since I've used one. So when in doubt, I guess break out the directions, make sure I know what I'm doing. I would not use these for anything even remotely structural, but all they are doing is securing this very light piece of avionics to this bracket, and I think they are more than adequate for doing that job. And since they're aluminum, if you tighten them too much, you can definitely strip them out. The aluminum will probably give long before the brass on the screws does. Again, I shouldn't have to worry about that when I finally put this in for the last time and it's good to go. I'm going to put some Loctite on there, snug them down, and it should be good. And it'll be something that gets checked on the annuals, make sure it's not coming loose and it's still level like it should be. There you go. You can see them installed there. Bracket's pretty well done. I shot some more primer over it. There is a 3D printed cable clip I made. I decided, since I had those leftover holes from where the conduit clamp was, I would reutilize 2 of those holes. So I made a little aluminum bracket, and then I 3D printed that cable clip you saw, and it's going to get soft riveted and epoxied to the aluminum bracket that I made, which is what I'm doing right now. And then for good measure, just because I could and I had leftover epoxy and micro left up there, I just slathered the whole thing in a small layer of it. Once it was dry, shot it with some primer. And I don't really think I have any pictures showing it, but it's going to mount on the inside of that rib so that the cable coming off of the magnetometer can loop around and will get zip tied to that clamp that I made, and it'll hold it secure and out of the way. Can't get the squeezer in there, had to use the actual rivet gun. Wasn't a big deal though. Now I did initially rivet all of this on, including the bottom part of that angle bracket. I've since realized that I really don't want that angle riveted on, because once I drill those holes in it, I need to be able to get to it to dimple the holes. So it has to come off again no matter what. And after I get all this mounted up and mocked up and looking pretty like it is right there, I realized that I really should probably make some doublers, some aluminum doublers to go on the backside, so that it's not just the thin-ish rib material holding all of this on in 4 spots. But we'll get to that. The other cool thing I learned about the magnetometer, or the remote magnetometer, is that you can plug the OAT probe into it. So, since I already ordered that one before, even though one's going to come with the ADHARs later, I decided this was a good opportunity to mount it somewhere even further out, not have to worry about running it through the conduit and getting it back into the ADHARs module. I would just mount this thing in this outer bay, So what I did was I made a small doubler plate, and it's just a little, probably like 1.5 by 1.5 square. And I figured out where I wanted to stick it, which was close to that trailing edge spar and one of the ribs. And I moved it as inboard as I could, just to get it away from the wingtip. There's the doublers I was talking about. And I mounted it as far aft as I did, just so I could run the wires along the conduit that's there. And then you'll see where they feed into this thing here in just a minute. Retrospect, it was kind of a pain in the ass spot. I didn't realize it's very hard to get my arm back there to get the nut on the back of it. I can do it, but those lightning holes are pretty tiny towards that trailing edge. So it's, if I was to do it again, I'd pick a spot a little bit more forward. But it shouldn't interfere with anything. It should be in a good spot, nice and shaded, and out of the way of everything. So I showed you those doubler plates. Those go on the back side. Hopefully that'll help take some of the stress off of this. I'm not going to rivet in the angle piece for the reasons I said earlier. And now I have the cable from Steinair to hook this thing up. I mentioned it was half the cost of the magnetometer. I am happy to say it is a very, very nicely made product. I think it's made by Dynon themselves. Came already pinned with the connector on one end, and here I am running it through. It's got a nice sheathing on it. Got it all pulled through, and in the conduit it goes. Can anybody see the problem? Didn't take me long to spot it, at least. Yeah, I forgot to put the boot on, and there's no way that boot's going to go over that connector. Oh well, only took a minute. Pull the cable back out, run it through the boot, and then fish it back through. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. There it is. That's what it's supposed to look like. So you can see that wire that's coiled up there. That is from the OAT probe. I have an awful lot of it. So here in a second, I'm going to shorten that up. Back and forth, gathering all the tools I need. They are just micro Molex connectors and pins for this, and I just happen to have a stash of those from when I built my 3D printer. I think I even used some on the trim servo. So cut them to length, left myself some slack, so I've got a little service loop I can put in there. It's going to get zip tied to the outside of that conduit where it pops into the wing, and then once the cable is on for good, it'll get zip tied along with the cable, because it's going to go almost to the same spot. Got it pinned, stuck the pins in the connector, and now I'm just using some wire lacing to bundle that whole thing up together. And then that's it. I'll go through, clean it up. It's temporarily hooked up. The magnetometer will come back off again and get put in a box and stored for now, so it stays away from anything that might screw with its calibration. The last thing I got here is I'm going to put another aluminum nutsert in there, and I've got some nylon wire clips. I'm going to use another one of those brass screws, and that will secure the connector that's going to go to the nav lights. That should keep all of that nice and secure and out of the way. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed it. Here's a parting shot, and I will see you all in the next one.